Hi guys, it's KJ from For Life Coaching, and I'm here today with a phenomenal hero. His name is Terry Smith, and he is a survivor, a TBI survivor, acoustic TBI survivor. There's 4 types of TBIs, and the acoustic one is the most severe one. So basically, I'm just in awe, and I have to say this. I'm super duper nervous. I didn't want to tell him this. I'm super duper nervous because the goal with these stories is to give individuals additional pathways or options to get through whatever challenge they're going through during the college years. And I just hope and pray that we are able to answer as many questions as possible for listeners. And Terry at the end will give you more information, whereas you can follow up if you have more questions about his road to recovery and his triumph. So a little bit about Terry. So Terry Smith is a runner. He ran the 400 and 800. He's from Jacksonville, Florida. He, I don't know, did you want to be Usain Bolt, or I can't remember the guy from Kenya who's the 400, the 800 runner right now. Was that your goal ever?
No. Track to me was as an opportunity, a stepping stone to the next level. It afforded me the opportunity to go to college. I mean,
it looks great on your resume, right?
Yeah, it helped me get the scholarship I received to go to school. So for me, it was good exercise. It exercised my competitive nature, but it was not a professional or long-term Olympic goal. It was a competitive thing that assisted me to get where I needed to go.
I can't lie. Where I went to school, there were no African Americans, and they weren't doing interracial dating at that time. So I wanted to run track so I could meet the guys at the other schools.
That happens a lot. Believe me, from 4th grade through college, that happens a lot.
Yeah, that was my goal. I was like, okay, I'm going to meet my husband somewhere. Unfortunately, I didn't. But anyway, so Terry is a runner. He ran the 400 and the 800. As he said, it afforded him the ability to get a 4-year scholarship to Hampton University in their ROTC program. So during his first year he was in the ROTC training program, and then he went for the summer training. During that summer training, Terry had a tragic injury. He was in I'm going to tell you 1 second, hold on, in a 3-ton troop transport, which actually flipped and rolled several times, which caused a major injury, caused a traumatic brain injury, and much more. He will tell you about his surgery and survival as we move forward. Afterwards, Terry was able to go back to school for a short period of time. Then he went through recovery for 3 years, 3 years in Atlanta, and then he went back to Hampton to finish his degree. And Terry was married and has a son, right? One son, yes. Or more than one son, has a son.
A son and a stepdaughter.
A son and a daughter.
Stepdaughter.
Son and daughter. He has children. He's an author. He has a very successful podcast. He's affiliated with the what is it? The
Brain Injury Radio Network.
Yes. And so he is doing a lot of things and thriving in so many ways. And what I wanted to do once again is share his story as a former NCAA athlete. He did, after those 3 years, come back to Hampton University and run as a starter on the track team. But he'll tell you more about that story as we move along. But I just wanted to say, I've listened to some of your podcasts. I've read your intro for your book. I've Googled you and tried to find out more information, and your story is just powerful. And like I said, I'm going to try to hold it up during this one. But thank you once again for joining me, Terry.
It's my pleasure, KJ. It's amazing what you're doing. So thank you also for helping play it forward like you're doing.
Yeah. Well, look, I'll take a compliment any day. I'm taking it on the score. I'm starting right here just in case I have a rainy day. Terry, can you tell me a little bit about your story growing up and running and track and the excitement and the adrenaline of getting on the course or the track?
It started in 4th grade, and in 4th grade is when my father died. So there was loss, but then I discovered this team of other participants. In the 4th grade, we had one event, and mine was the running long jump. And we practiced all year. And at the end of the year, There was one big track meet from all the schools in the area. We get together in our grade level, and I was first place. And that blue ribbon changed my whole outlook from my father's death to saying, hey, I want to keep doing this. So that blue ribbon led to the next year running one whole lap around the track, which was we called it the 440 back then.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so the 440, I was second place, and I said, oh no. So then I kept, by the time I was on a track team, we had official like seventh grade. I think. It was the first full team where all year we worked, and then had meets every week, like twice a week. And that's when I started running the 440 and the 880, and sometimes the 220, and it became just a competitive thing that I was racing against other runners, but also myself to see how much I could beat every time I raced. And that assisted me with so many other things in my life that I was hooked, line and sinker, into this running, the competitiveness of it.
The versatility of running the 220 to the 800, I mean, that just blows me away. And also, you know, when you start running, the craziest thing is finding your race. Like I ran the 400 in the beginning because my coach swore that I was a sprinter. And then one day during practice, we just stumbled upon the fact that I was actually a miler. So finding your groove, and you found your groove in the 200, the 400, the 800, that blows me away.
Well, the 200 was a rare occasion out of necessity. If someone was needed in that, my 400 was my secondary. The 800 was my primary focus. In fact, I ran cross country as in the off season, because it was different seasons, to get the endurance for the 400 and 800. But the sprinting for the 200 was just a few times. And when I had to do the 200, I was wiped out, literally wiped out. I would put so much into it. Everything I have is that how many seconds it lasted, and that was it. I was wiped out for a while.
But the crowd is crazy for the 200. I ran the mile, and so when I ran the mile, like everybody would be off getting a rest or whatever. So you know, you're hoping and praying that at least a few people will stick around for your race. But the sprint, I mean, the adrenaline is just like.
Yes, something like it. You still run?
Huh?
You still run?
I am a licensed Zumba instructor, but I'm taking a little break right now, and I'm trying to do the toning and stuff like that instead of doing the running. But once again, like I said, I get the adrenaline, I get the excitement. Yes. And were you looking for that, some type of adrenaline or excitement when you went to college? Did you think track was not enough, and that was why you're looking for the ROTC? Why the switch between the two? Well,
actually, when I started at Hampton as my freshman year, I'd given up on track and field and cross country because that was something I did in high school. I mean, I wasn't so competitive that I had aspirations to make it to national competitions or the Olympics or anything. In fact, in high school, my highest achievement was making it to state. I made it to state consistently every year. I'd make it to state, but we're not qualified for nationals. But I was happy. I made it to state. And that was enough for me. So college, I wanted to focus on becoming an officer and starting my career in the military so that I could establish myself and begin a career in politics. That was my ultimate objective, to get some type of foundation in which I could run for the Senate. And with the Senate, ideally one day the White House. But that accident changed everything in my life, changing the moment. Just literally changed my life, broke my heart. To this day, it's hard to talk about without feeling part of myself dying that day. I don't even know if I answered your question. I get caught up in that.
No. That was phenomenal. Phenomenal what you're saying. And when you talk about dying, I actually read your story where you were talking about what happened during the surgery. Do you remember or recall anything the day of, or what was going on? I mean, like, first of all, you go for your first training, right? And you're in Quantico. What are your thoughts? What's it like? You know.
Well, there's a little backstory to the whole thing. First of all, it was an Army ROTC. It was an Army ROTC scholarship. I wanted to be a Marine. In fact, so much so when I was in high school, I had pre-enlisted in the Marine Corps because I wanted my background for politics to be as a Marine, and that was my goal. So as a fail-safe, I always believe in having a backup plan. So as a fail-safe, pre-enlisted, early enlistment my senior year in the Marine Corps in case none of my plans or applications came true. So with that foundation laid, having already been accepted and enlisted as a Marine, I then applied to one university. I only wanted to go to Hampton University, and then applied for the scholarship, right? That was a long shot, I thought, but I received it. So I received the notice, and they released me from my enlistment in the Marine Corps, and I said, okay, fine, I'll go in the Army. I'll be an Army officer, fine. And then I'll transfer to the Marine Corps, but I'll get college paid for. And I did that my freshman year. In fact, I was given the Superior Cadet Award, which is the highest award awarded in the Department of Defense to each freshman class of cadets. And I resigned my scholarship because the contract allowed me to have my freshman year on the house. No penalty, no money, nothing owed. But if I came back to that sophomore year, I would then begin owing the government money if I did not finish it, and then time if I did complete it. So I resigned that scholarship because I learned I could pay for college without that 4-year scholarship and become a Marine by going to OCS in the summer school. During summer. So I then started OCS, Officer Candidate School, in the United States Marine Corps, which I wanted from the beginning. And my first week there, I think back to your question, I don't remember a month before that. My last memory is resigning my scholarship in my freshman year. And the next thing is waking up in a hospital. So I don't remember going to Quantico. I don't remember, I lost so much before the immediate accident. So everything I know about the accident is from my research and documents reported by the investigative teams and what my family has given me in their detail eyewitness. But the memory loss was not only immediately before the accident, it was extenuous. Just so much was lost when that skull was crushed into the ground, and people, when I woke up, I didn't know who they were, and so much of my past had been lost. So I tend to digress, but if I answered your question.
No, this is great. This is great, because I will tell you that I'm a survivor of an abusive marriage, and so there are parts of the marriage that I don't remember, and probably that I don't want to remember. But sometimes things will happen, and they'll bring back clarity to things that happened during the relationship. But there's some things that are still, they're skewed and they're scattered, because when you're going through a traumatic situation, you cope, sometimes cope by letting go of some of that stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's a survival tactic.
If you consciously let it go, but you remember it, that I don't know. Do you not remember because blocking it out or because there was some type of trauma involved? Is it physically abusive?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I really don't know. I really don't know. I just know that some things, when certain things happen, they spark that memory. They spark what happened that I completely forgot about. If that makes any sense.
Well, it tells you that it's in there somewhere. Versus mine having just emptiness, nothing, hoping for some type of trigger that will stimulate a flash or a scene or a fog or something, but there's absolutely nothing. The total absence of all things is what is in that part of my life.
Do you want it or do you not want it?
No, remember, I would love to see it like on a screen. Like if I could just look at my life on a screen, it would be lovely to see what happened. I've read the testimony of all the other candidates who were in the back of that. There were 20 of us. One died, and 2 of us were critically injured, and we survived. But our careers as officers in the Marine Corps were both destroyed. But I'm sorry, what was the question? KJ?
No, there was no question. We're just talking. I don't want you to feel like this is a rigid environment. I just want you to share your story as it comes along. We were talking about, do you remember that day? And basically what happened during the day. I mean, I can just tell them from what I read about it is that you were in this accident, and then you actually went for your surgery for recovery, and you actually died twice during the surgery.
Well, I flatlined twice. Immediately, they had a big two helicopters with my brain slips my. It was a huge helicopter. They got as many of us out of there as they could, but immediately did surgery for brain surgery, and I flatlined twice during. I only know this because of the doctor news reports, and it was in all of the news, national, back in 1884, a long time ago, right? I revealed a lot just now, but yeah, it was national news. I mean, a Marine died. It was one of the first. Now it's like almost every summer somebody dies in training, but back then it was new. We were one of the first to go through death in training, so we were setting precedents in what happened. And my sister was greatly involved. That's a whole other story, because as officer candidates, we were Marines on active duty for the purposes of training. But I'm digressing again. I tend to.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Because no, you're not. Please don't feel that way, because there's somebody out there that needs your story. So what you're saying and what's heavy on your heart, some parent, some Marine, or some candidate, somebody needs your story. So don't ever feel like we're in a box. There's no box. There's your story. You to share it to the fullest.
So where do you want to go? Where do you want to take me?
So you were just telling me about that day, and you were talking about the historical component of what happened that day. I actually mentioned to you that you had flatlined, and you were telling me that your sister was a part of it, but you didn't continue on with your sister. So how was your sister a part of it?
Well, the thing is, after the accident, a lot of us were sent home because the commanding officer at Quantico the commandant didn't even know, didn't know what to do. We were sent home. So she contacted the people who were involved in making sure that we were properly handled as active duty Marines who were, or at least active duty for the purposes of training, and treated as such for our benefits and care and future medical care. So we were all then who were critically injured extended the proper treatment because of her insistence that we were not to be released like we were initially, and that's when we were completely taken care of medically, and to this day cared for by the United States Marine Corps, or the military in general, whichever branch, like any retired Marine or Navy or Army, Air Force, Coast Guard, military branch.
So are you considered a retired Marine right now?
Yes.
Thank God. Wow. So
after 1 year and a summer that I don't remember, I was retired. 10 years later, it took 10 years for the process to go through and complete.
Wow. So during this process of recovery, you have recovered enough. They say you recovered enough to do what? You've recovered enough to go back to school. You've recovered enough to work. You've recovered enough.
Well, initially, my doctor, right after the accident, my doctors primarily trying to convince my family to help them convince me not to go back to school. It was too soon.
Wow.
Brain's not ready. And I was insistent. I was conscious, and I felt completely aware of everything around me, and I was focused. I was tunnel vision to start immediately. I didn't want to waste any time. I didn't grasp what had happened to me, and it wasn't until I did get out of the bed and leave against doctor's orders, AMA against medical advice, and whatever. I had to leave and go back to school. My mother, my poor mother, she's dead now, but it breaks my heart when I reflect on what I put her through when she kept trying to slow me down, right? And I just wasn't listening. I wasn't having it. I wanted to continue my journey. And I did. I went back to school, and I was to work as an RA. That was part of my new plan to pay for school, working as an RA in my freshman dorm. As a sophomore, I would now be the RA, and we were there. I was there one day with one of the few people I remember. One person, my best friend, he was also an RA. He had been my RA my freshman year, so he was now a junior and I was a sophomore. But it was something simple, a task, just elementary kind of thing that you're supposed to do as an RA. I don't even remember what it was. I go in the room and do an inventory, maybe, I'm not sure. But I did something so violently wrong that I broke down in his arms in tears, because it was such a simple thing that I screwed up so drastically that it was obvious something was not working up here. And then there was one thing after another. Then classes started. The freshmen came in, and that's when, oh my goodness, the pressure heated so much so. Dean Sweat, the Dean of Men, had my position removed. He said, "No, you're not ready," because I was doing just off the wall crazy stuff that did not make sense. And I was then put in a senior suite, isolated away from the primary campus, that would be less stressful, hopefully, for my brain injury. But there, even with those conditions now more relaxed, I began to seize. I had a seizure sort of from the head injury, and that's when Dean Sweat said, "No, I'm sorry, you have to go home now." And that's it. I had to go home. And I did so for 3 more years, recover and work on various exercises, work with occupational therapy, physical therapy, all kinds of therapists, and help from everywhere, help, work, write everything I'm doing on paper so that it helps with the memory, work on the memory, train the memory, work on the brain, exercises, mental exercises after exercises for 3 years, back and forth to the hospital, from Atlanta, back and forth to doctors all over the country, different doctors for different treatments. 3 years, I said, okay, I'm ready. And I went back to Hampton, and I then started my new life. I think I went off a little bit.
No, you're perfect. You're perfect. Please stop. You're perfect. You're perfect.
Well, I think that's where we are. I mean, I went back to Hampton, and that's when my second life started, or when track started, actually, because now without ROTC and back in school, working well academically with help from professors who were with me as a freshman but knew about the accident, and knowing my cognitive disabilities gave me extra time for preparation, like time in the studio. When students only had access for 1 hour, I might be given 2 or 3 hours to work on the same study time, preparation in the equipment or whatever we're working on. And I did so well enough to thrive, but I lost my track here.
No, phenomenal. So you're back in school. You've got the additional support.
Oh, track and field. That's right, track and field. That's when I said, okay, I'm doing well enough to now handle more. So I said track and field. I run, because even my freshman year, before the accident in ROTC, I was the fastest runner out there. In fact, the guys from cross country would come over and try to run with me, and it was blown how because we had to run long in Army ROTC, just crazy miles and distances. And I would always, like, in fact, I started helping other students. I started on the weekends. If you want to come in, I'll help you run. I'll train you, coach you, make you a better runner, better conditioning. And so when I went back to school after 3 years of recovery, I said, you know what? I'll try it out. And I did. The coach let me walk on. So I wasn't on scholarship. I was just a walk on. But it was, for me, something I could do and continue, and help me ground myself and stay in shape. Unfortunately, after working out with the cross country team, and it didn't work out because of the pre-existing head trauma results, like the seizures and the other pins. Back then, they're not as problematic now, but back then, there'd be sensations like you can imagine a million burning hot needles sticking you in your back and down your legs, like all over the. This is what happened if I became too hot, and it was debilitating, so much so that I was no longer able to run on it during the team. So I found myself running in the dark, night or early morning, but not able to participate in the team anymore.
So what was the difference with running at night? Was it that the sun was, the heat?
The sun, yeah, the sun hitting my brain, because a lot of my brain, the skull is removed, and the brain has just absorbed too much heat from the sun. So when I'm in the dark, it doesn't have the heat from the sun. It's just the heat that I build up from running, and I can cool myself by slowing my pace or stopping.
Wow. And so were you able to still run distances, or was it a shorter distance?
You know what? No, I was able to run in the dark for miles. I could still run. I did run for a long time until the point when my knees stopped working for me years later. So now, when I asked you earlier if you still ran, I was hoping to hear that you did a lot, because most of us can't at our age, I think, but because of the different reasons. Mine, because of my knees. The knees just don't handle it anymore.
Yeah. So I think because I'm so I'll be honest, because I'm so much heavier down, you know, my lower body is so much heavier. I just have difficulty with running, period. So if I can lose the weight, that's why I'm in the gym. If I can lose the weight or tone the weight, then I think I would feel more comfortable with running. I just feel like, that midsection, I have a black woman's body. I have a black woman's body and it's heavy.
But that doesn't make it painful? Are you saying it's painful when you run?
I think it makes it harder for me to lift my legs. So because it makes it harder for me to lift my legs, I think the pounding is going to be more intense.
You know, the treadmill then, have you tried a treadmill?
Yeah, I don't like the treadmill at all. I mean, I've tried, I used to race walk on the treadmill, but I mean, it's boring. I mean, I'm from New Jersey. I like eclectic things. I like, I like to see the scenery. I like to see different people. I just like all that stuff, and being on the treadmill in a room, and it just doesn't do anything for me. And I've even tried the, where you can put the videos up in front and you can watch the video while you're walking. I mean, I'm a people person. I need to engage with people as much as possible. So, yeah.
I get that vibe from you. I get that energy.
What?
From you.
Engaging with people?
Yes, I get that from you. Yes.
Oh, it's my lifeline. It's my lifeline. Like when I talk to people, what happened? So my dad was very big on not generalizing. Like he did not like generalizing. He did not like stereotyping. He was completely opposed to it. He grew up a tobacco farmer in Virginia, and then he actually wound up working on Wall Street in Manhattan. And so what happened was he was always very grateful that people did not discredit him because of his Southern twang and his I hate to say this, but kind of lack of exposure to some of the things that they have been exposed to. So he worked overtime, I would say, in trying to make sure that he understood other cultures and other things, because he was so appreciative of what had been done for him. So we used to go to New York on the weekends, like 2 weekends a month, and we would just walk from, and I when you talk about distance, I think this is why I was a distance runner. We would walk from the financial district, South Street Seaport, all the way up to like Midtown, or we walk from Midtown to 125th Street. And so just to put that in numbers, Midtown is like 32nd Street, like Madison Square Garden, up to 125th Street, like going through Central Park.
Now, to put that in better perspective, for those of us who don't know the geographic distance so well, how do you put that in miles? Are we talking 2 miles?
Like city blocks are not short. That's all I can say. They're not short. So you figure, I don't know, from the 30s to the 120s, what's that? 90 blocks,
So 90, so it's a block. So it's okay. I can visualize. That's a long journey. So
yeah.
Stimulate you to run across.
But while we're walking, we're going through Chinatown, which, you know, people are speaking Chinese. We're going through Little Italy. We're going through Greenwich Village. We're going through, you know, Spanish Harlem, and we're going through the Upper West Side, which is a Hasidic Jewish community. You know, there are a lot of Hasidic Jewish people. We're going through the Upper East Side, which is where, you know, Trump Plaza and, you know, a lot of the other different types of things, and you know, affluent, you know, different stores.
So much of my idea for you running on grass to make it a softer journey, right? No, not gonna happen there, right?
Right, and we're walking on cement. But the thing is, we're seeing so many different people, so many different cultures in their authentic sense. So for me, just walking does not do it, because like I said, I'm just in one room, and I don't know. But that's just a corny story. So that's me. I love people. I that is my lifeline, engaging with different people, diverse personalities, diverse perspectives, because I don't like to generalize or stereotype. But I will say when something's not right, you know, I will say when something's not right, but I don't like to generalize or stereotype, because I think that we're all individuals. So
you evolve more so than many.
yes. So what you were saying is you went back to school, you started running, and after you started running, you know, you decided not to because of the seizures, but you did graduate. Am I correct?
Yeah, I graduated with honors and multiple honors, university honors and departmental honors.
Get out. And what did you major in?
I was during the period I was in Atlanta, the 3 years there, I did a lot of production things, and I was in front of the camera talent, and I learned that I had a bigger power behind the camera. So I went back to school. I switched my major from management to business management to mass media, and I focused on film and television. And all the writing I had done for occupational therapy because of the head injury, I wrote everything I could. And when I was back in school, I made student films, I wrote scripts, I took short stories and scripted them to shoot, and I produced them. And by the time I was a senior, my sister gave me a phone call and said, "Have you read the latest Jet magazine?" And I picked it up. Eddie Murphy and Paramount Pictures was holding a fellowship, and you could submit your work. And I did, and did not get it initially. But I drove from Virginia after graduating, because I had talked with the people when they came to interview me, because I was a finalist. And when they came to Hampton and interviewed me, they made such an impression on me, and I made a deal with the guy who was there. I said, if I don't win this, I'm coming out there anyway, right? And he said, if you do, I'll hook you up. And anyway, after not getting it, someone from Howard University got it. And I drove out there, and when I knocked on his door, he was blown. And then the next thing is Eddie Murphy is sending me a letter saying, congratulations, he gave me a second one. So that was my transition from writing all of the things that were happening, what was on my plate so that I could train my memory, to now writing for one of the biggest studios in the world with Eddie Murphy Productions.
Wow.
My pictures, yeah.
And so how did you transfer from that to where you are today with regards to writing?
I haven't transferred. I'm still writing to this day, and I'm doing it just on a different medium. I'm not working in film anymore or television anymore. I am now writing books, plays. I still write screenplays. In fact, I'm working on a project now that's film related, but I don't deal with the production end, and I don't need to be in LA anymore, because now in a virtual world, you can live anywhere, literally, and write virtually. So I'm still doing it 30 something years later. That's still what I do. I write. In fact, terrysmithbooks.com is where you visit and find most of my works. terrysmithbooks.com.
I saw one of your books. I started reading one of your books, which was probably the easiest to find online. It was the one with the picture of the skull, the face.
Surviving head trauma. Yes, that's exactly one of the things. I'm a big advocate now for traumatic brain injury, and that's what that book is. That's my only nonfiction work. It's a guide really for patients it's not an autobiography. It's a memoir about my struggles and my triumphs with overcoming the obstacles that are inherently follow a traumatic brain injury. And it's been very helpful to a lot of people. In fact, it spawned a talk show on the Brain Injury Radio Network, Surviving Head. It's called Surviving Head Trauma. And I host that once a month with a fellow host. And then on Facebook, there's a page, Surviving Head Trauma, which is a community page on Facebook. I hope your viewers visit, you guys up there on Facebook, check it out, Surviving Head Trauma page. It's a book, it's a Surviving Head Trauma on Facebook page, and it's a podcast. So, and it's my life, surviving daily.
Because every day you're making greater recovery. I wanted to mention something that I saw. So I want to mention some facts really quickly. As you said, you're in a car rollover or truck rollover. But I wanted to mention that actually out of all the car rollovers, only 3% of them are only, wait, I'm sorry. Rollover occurs in 3 of all serious car crashes. Rollover occurs. And just to tell you a quick story, I did roll over a truck. I bought my ex-husband a Ford Explorer, and I was used to a small car, a Mitsubishi Eclipse. And I had the kids, and I was rushing to get home one day, and there was some ice, but I was trying to get home before my ex-husband got home. And there was a patch of ice that I drove over. And when I drove over the patch of ice, the car actually did a 360. And I got out the car. I mean, there were people around. I got out the car and around the car. I was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with the car. Oh, thank you. There's nothing wrong with the car. Because I didn't want him to be upset or anything anything, whatever. And so the thing is, there was not one single scratch on the car, even though the car rolled over, right? The thing is, there was a dent in the roof. And that was how you could tell that the car rolled, that the car had rolled.
You said it did 360, you mean it?
No, not 360, this thing. Like, no, not
rolls.
Spin. Not spin around, circle, like.
And there was no damage to the vehicle? That was just a dent in the top?
Well, it did. It did something to the bottom part. I think it's like the chassis or something. I don't know what it was, but it did something to the bottom part, so I couldn't drive. But the only damage was there was a big dent in the roof of the car from where it hit the ground hard.
What about you?
Nothing. I was checked out. There was absolutely no injury and absolutely no nothing. So we all had on our seatbelts. It was me, my 2 kids.
You had the children in the car. I thought you were on your way to get them. You already had them in the car.
I had the kids in the car with me, and it was like so funny. I was like,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I was like, and my daughter was talking at that time period, right? At that time, and I was like, oh my God, I just hope she doesn't tell my ex-husband that I rolled the car. I hope she doesn't tell my ex-husband. And so and so the funniest thing was, everything was good. Like I got out and I told you I ran around the car, make sure the car was good. It was just that doggone dent in the top of the car that I was concerned about. So I was like, if I could just get this thing off the ice, and the policeman won't come, and we don't have, nobody will know about it, et cetera. And everybody's like, man, you just rolled the car, you need to stand still. I was like, no, you don't understand. I gotta get home. Like I was going crazy because I knew I had to get home.
Do that. Was it a single car event? I mean, was this other car involved?
It was just me. It was actually
the ice. You hit the ice and what went off and hit the curb and what happened?
So I was in Union, New Jersey. And so I was getting on the highway. I think it's Highway 24. I was getting on Highway 24. So you know how there's an entrance ramp to get on the highway?
Yeah.
Well, I was on the entrance ramp, and on the entrance ramp, there was a big old patch of ice.
Okay.
So when I hit the ramp, patch of ice, the car rolled over to
yes. Okay.
Yeah, over to the grass, or over to the grass on this side. So I rolled to the left.
I see. Yeah.
And so when I rolled to the left, it actually the car wound up standing up straight, but it was on the grass.
It was your day for you.
So when it was on the grass, the only thing I was thinking is like, okay, let these other cars go by. Let me get behind the wheel and let me drive this thing home so that nobody knows that I got into this car accident, right? That was my thing. I I wasn't thinking. So I was
What
like,
happened?
let me just get home. And the thing was, my daughter was like, you know, she was da, 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 da. I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna tell him that we got into an accident. Oh my gosh, she's gonna tell him that we got into an accident. But the thing is, the car wouldn't start because apparently whatever I did when I rolled the car, it did something underneath. So whatever it did underneath, the car wouldn't start. So I had to get it towed. So, you know, he knew, and you know, it is what it is. But yeah, so I was in a rollover, but only 3%. And then
But you had to get the tow truck there to get you out.
yeah,
Yes.
and I was like, I was trying, I was praying that the car would move, but it, you know, it is what it is. So, and I bought the car, so you would think that I wouldn't be upset, but I was, you know. So I wanted to mention that. I wanted to mention that also during your recovery period, it mentions that you had to manage seizures, anxiety, insomnia, paranoia, memory loss, and it states that it took 20 years for you to actually go through this process, or I guess really see the reduction or the elimination, or what was the 20 years? Explain that to me.
First of all, I think that you're probably reading something that dated at 20 years at that point, because it's the thing about brain trauma is that it doesn't go away, doesn't get better. You just learn better coping skills. So when you say 20 years, I'm gauging probably that you read something that was dated. So let's bring it up to date. 36 years, I think, now since then. But it's a matter of dealing with whatever your issues are. Every head trauma is different. Every survivor is different in how he or she handles it. My initial problems, some of them did go away. The physical things, like the pins and needles I described earlier, that happens like once every several years now. In the beginning, it was a frequent thing. The slightest just moment without provocation or warning of any kind, it would just attack. It would just be there, and you'd be at war with this pain, this indescribable and intense emerging pain. And it would just last until it ended. And that stopped happening frequently.
What was your social behavior as a result of it? How did you respond physically or verbally?
Socially, I became a recluse. In fact, to this day, I have probably one person in my life, and then on the phone, I'm good with my sister and my son. And then I don't have a lot of people outside of that. I mean, I know lots of people, and I deal with them virtually and on the phone and the computer, and that's it. I don't personally visit or allow in my world. It's hard to do for me. So I've learned to live as a recluse, and I like it now. So going off topic a bit, pandemic, as horrible as of a global effect it had, it was for me and many like me almost a blessing, because the whole world virtually came to a halt and just quiet and still, and no one interacted anymore. Bad for the world, yes, but for us, those who live, who live in this world of recluse, it was like heaven almost. As bad as that sounds, as awkward as it may sound, as awkward as it makes me feel to say that out loud, it's the truth. And others who, in fact, the podcast that I run and the daily page that I run, many like me say the same thing, that the recluse was good. To answer your question, how did it change me? I was once a gregarious, outspoken leader, a leader of men, a Marine officer candidate. I was in class country captain, track team captain, high school, was outgoing student government officer. I was just outgoing. And then after the accident, complete opposite, just alone. So yeah, that's what happened socially. Going out became difficult. Medication, drugs required. Like I'm about alcohol with that. Even that was a stage trying to get out of it. Alcohol helped. In fact, helped so much so that it became an issue, a big problem issue. And then that stopped. It just stopped. One day, just said, I don't want to drink anymore, and I stopped. That was years and years ago. But yeah, there's so many phases from brain trauma. Different patients handle it differently. That's how I handle it. And I had so many other issues. I mean, there was the pins and needles, but that was one thing. Dealing with memory loss, that was psychologically destructive, because people walked up to me and told me stories about our past. I had no idea who this person was, what they were talking about, and that became hurtful. I mean, just painful after a while. But happening so many times, person after person, telling me stories and stories, and people, all these things that happened in my life. I no longer knew who I was or who I had been. And that became a big, big burden in my mind and heart that I had to overcome through just therapy and a lot of self-search and meditation and all kinds of coping skills that you acquire along the way. So if any of your listeners, like athletes, probably may relate to CTE issues, and one of those results is rage. Rage is another thing that was combated with medicine for a while, because the slightest blow of the wind would just trigger it. And mostly in the beginning, I thought, oh my goodness, it's anger, because it's just uncontrolled anger. But no, I realized, no, what it is a short fuse. That the beginning of it was other people triggering it. You trigger it, you just don't know what the trigger might be, but you just and just react without hesitation. Usually a brain that's whole and undamaged will pause if someone says something wrong or does something wrong or against what they want. That pause mechanism, destroyed, blown out, immediate outburst happened. And that became an issue that was controlled later with experience, wisdom, and medication. And
that's the microglia priming with the fear or flight response. You know, when you are in an intense environment, when there's an intense transition or change from the norm, you know, there's the fear, flight, or fear, fight, or flight response. And that's probably what you're talking about. You know, extending that time period of processing what has actually happened. And when you have a TBI, it's harder, that time that is used to process and to regulate what's going on is shortened, right? So self-regulation is hard.
And it takes time. It takes time, and I've worked on different skills to master it, and now I feel like I reached Zen. Yeah. KJ, I'm looking at the clock here, and I hate to cut it short, but we kind of need to start wrapping, because I've gone over a busy schedule today that I need to keep. I hope I can help with something else. If you can ask me something that won't take so much more time.
Nope, that was basically, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time. If you would like to give two things. One, if you'd like to provide any recommendations for our listeners as to how to get through the process, if there's any one key thing, as far as you were saying, coping mechanisms that you would like to recommend. And then number two is if you could once again give us your contact information. If somebody has a question, I definitely would love for you to share your podcast information in case if somebody would like to join in the where I called in the other week. So. Okay,
well, I'll tell you, both answers are probably the answer fits both of your questions. If you should read the book, Terry Smith's book, Surviving Head Trauma by Terry Smith. The book covers everything that I went through, and I went through the gamut, of issues that you could go through. And mine was critical. Most aren't that critical. Mine was in a small percentage of severity of brain traumas. And the fact that I'm sitting here talking with you is in one on my website, terrysmithbooks.com. Doctors have called a miracle, because I've spoken in front of groups since then with the help of medication to go out in public about this, and I've seen people in the audience in wheelchairs, in immovable positions, and they were less severe head trauma patients. And I've seen in the audience translators translating my speech to members of the audience who were survivors with less severe brain trauma. So I realized how fortunate I am, how blessed I am, because I'm able to sit here and with the cognitive ability to speak with you as coherently as I do. I understand and I appreciate so deeply with every inhale and exhale. I value life. I praise existence every day of my life. So I walk away with gratitude more than anything from all of this, that I'm simply alive. And if I can help anyone, you can find me on my website, terrysmithbooks.com. And you can call my show, my podcast, KJ, the one you called, Surviving Head Trauma on the Braintree Radio Network, which you can also find at terrysmithbooks.com. And any advice you want from me personally, you can also reach me by the contact information under Terry on the website, terrysmithbooks.com. I think I answered that one. Did I? KJ?
That was perfect. That was perfect. You always keep asking, did I do okay? Did I do good? You were phenomenal. And like I said, our goal is to provide our listeners with more pathways to success, to triumph, and sometimes they might be in an environment where the persons they're working with are familiar with one particular route or have a traditional approach, where sometimes there needs to be more opportunities or options infused. So once again, I think that your insight today, I think that your story will help many persons, or will, even if it helps one person, will help many persons along the way, families, coaches, individuals, to understand what survival looks like, and also the depth of challenges that can come about from a TBI. Because once again, those challenges, to our viewers, once again, those challenges sometimes don't happen immediately. They can happen further along later in life, versus the immediate response. And then they'll say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Why is this happening? And sometimes they don't think back to the TBI. They might blame it on something else. And then what happens is you medicate a social behavior, that rage or whatever it is, instead of medicating or addressing the core, which is the TBI. So, so once again, like I said.
One of the takeaways, at least one of the takeaways, is if you're new to this world of traumatic brain injury, not to rush it so fast, because I did aggressive disservice to myself by putting myself back into an environment that demanded so much of me cognitively that I was not ready to handle neurologically. And that set me back. And doctors have said that perhaps, possibly, could have been part of the cause of the seizures, because not all head injuries result in seizure disorder. So I hope you take away something is that not to rush it. Listen to your doctor's advice. Take your time. It takes time. Let your body and brain heal after the initial impact. So, yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much for everything, Terry. We will definitely be in touch again, and you are amazing. And I will make sure that your contact information is in. So for every single video, what I do is I do those timestamps so that people can look along and find the area that they want to go back to, or get more information on, or whatever it may be. And so I will make sure that I include your contact information in the timestamp when I forward it. But again, thank you so much for everything. You are really and truly a hero, a miracle, and a blessing.
Oh, so are you. Thank you so much for what you're doing, and keep it forward what is it? One forward?
Forward life coaching.
All right, very good. Forward life coaching. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.